Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Cyberse Yugioh deck profile for October 2021. I always love updating the Cyberse deck. They don't really get any support lately, but we had a bunch of reprints from the 2021 Megaton, and I figured with the Add Ignister deck bringing a lot of hype back for the Cyberse archetype, I'd do an update to the pure Cyberse deck that Yusaku used that can implement Fusion, Synchro, Ritual, Xyz all together to bring out the big boss monster Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, the Link 5 monster. That is definitely a powerhouse for the deck. I always love the playstyle of it. There are so many different plays you can do involving your extra deck and all the different monsters you run in the main deck. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck. For our numbers, I still love revolving around the Coder archetype. It really does help for the consistency in the deck. With Microcoder, if a Cyberse monster would be used as link material, you can use for a Code Talker, you can use this card from your hand, and if it's sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can add a Cyberse Cynet spell or trap from your deck to your hand. If it was on the field, you can add a level 4 lower Cyberse monster instead. So depending on where this card is used, you're still getting an awesome search off because you can either search out a Cynet spell or trap, so either cards like Cynet Mining or Cynet Codec for the available search power that those cards provide, or even just the monster option if it is on your field. I also run 3 Code Radiator. This card also is a card that is usable for a Code Talker Link summon from your hand, but it gives more of an option of if it's sent from the hand, you can make a face-up monster your currently controls attack 0, and if it was on the field, you can target 2 instead. So this is another way to get over some of the bigger monsters your opponent may have on the field with the other Code Talker monsters you summon out using these cards. And also Microcoder is a Dark Attribute monster, so it's searchable when you make a Dark Attribute Code Talker with Cynet Codec on the field, and Code Radiator being a water one is searchable when you make a Water Code Talker. That's why we're running Shooting Code Talker for that search option with this card. And I also run 2 Code Generator. I only run 2 of this card. I considered 3. If I were to run 3, I'd probably drop down to 2, the next search option card we have in the deck. But another option to be used from the hand for the link summon of a Code Talker monster. And with this one, if it's sent from the hand, you can send one Cyberse monster with 1200 or less attack from your deck to the graveyard. If it was on the field, you can add that card to your hand instead. But still being able to send it from the deck to the graveyard sets us up for a bunch of different cards, including Dotscaper for those special summon options using this card. For more search power to the hand, I also run 3 Lady Debug. This is the card I considered taking down to 2 for a 3rd copy of Code Generator, but you can even search Code Generator off of Lady Debug, so that's why I decided to run 3 of this card instead of the Code Generator in the deck, just being able to add a level 3 or lower Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand with this card alone. And for another of the 3 ofs, I also run 3 Cyberse Gadget. We run plenty of low-level Cyberse monsters in the deck to summon back with this card, and also just being able to get a Gadget token with this card onto the field after it is sent from the field to the graveyard. With it, you have more resources to use for more and more summons from the extra deck using that token and this card. But the big resources just come down to being able to set up a bunch of the different low-level Cyberse monsters that we run in the main deck in the graveyard to then special summon back onto the field with cards like Cyberse Gadget. I really like this card at 3. I've been testing it more and more. I had it at lower numbers before, but I'm just liking it too much as that additional resource monster, and there are plenty of other ways that we can get additional normal summons on the field, with one of those cards being Balancer Lord with just 1,000 life points, and we don't really use life points for anything else in the deck. We can have that additional normal summon, so if we have that monster set up in the graveyard, we can use Balancer Lord to then summon Cyberse Gadget to bring that lower level monster onto the field for us to use, and then just go from there. For some of the lower numbers, for some of the other Cyberse cards, I run 2 Widget Kid. If this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon 1 Cyberse monster from your hand in defense position. You can only use this effect of Widget Kid once per turn. So this is just another resource. It does special summon the other card we use, but you can always then just special summon Balancer Lord using your Widget Kid, and then use the additional life point pay to then summon your Cyberse Gadget to the field this way. And then having the additional Cyberse cards we spoke of before, being the code monsters, to then use for the link summon from your hand to gain their additional effects also. I also run 2 Parallel Exceed. I thought of running 3 of this card, but if I were running the Parallel Exceed Dragon as a rank 4 option, I would. I'm running the Cyberse Reminder instead in the deck. I think it's more consistent for our Exceed plays and some of our other extra deck monsters to go into it. So that's why I'm only running 2 Parallel Exceed. It is an additional setup card and searchable when we go into X-Code Talker, being a wind attribute code talker to summon. So that's why I do like running it in the deck as that additional setup. For some of the one-ofs for the Cyberse monsters, I run 1 Paladin of Storm Dragon. You can ritual summon this card with Sign at Ritual. At the start of damage step, if it attacks a monster, you can return that monster to the hand, and you contribute this card to special summon 1 level 5 or higher Cyberse monster from your hand or deck, but it cannot activate its effects this turn. So another target for Parallel Exceed if need be for summoning out a card with this card on the field. I also run 1 Cyberse Converter. If you control all Cyberse monsters, it's just an easy special summon from the hand onto the field, and also another target for Cyberse Gadget. I also run 1 Backup Secretary for an easier special summon as well with our Cyberse monsters, being another level 3 monster target for Cyberse Reminder. Also, 1 Nightmare Corruptor Ibly. This card is great for just coming back with resources from the graveyard with our Link monsters summoning it, so it has to point to this card on the field, but it just gives us that high Link monster to utilize for those plays. Also, 1 Dotscaper. I've used this card for the longest amount of time as I can recall in many of my different Cyberse decks, so it's just an added option in the deck to special summon, whether it be sent to the graveyard or banished. Also, 1 Cyberse Synchron for our needed synchro plays. Using this card, I run this and the level 3 Cyberse Integrator as our level 3 synchro to go into. Just an easier resource to make use of, I would say, than Cyberse Quantum Dragon, since our main go-to play is just to easily set up Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid with as many counters on the field. Also, 1 Sea Archiver, once again, easy level 3 to make use of, whether it be in your hand or graveyard every time you summon to a Link Arrow. A Water Tribute, so another viable source for when we summon out Shooting Code Talker with Signet Codec on the field. And lastly, 1 Link Infra Flyer. If you can special summon this card from your hand to a zone a Link monster points to. It's just that simple as long as you have that Link monster set up on the field. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells, one of the best spells in the deck. Signet Mining. You run 3 of this card. You send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to add 1 level 4 lower Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand. You can activate 1 Signet Mining per turn. So this card can search out basically everything we run aside from Parallel Exceed from our main deck to our hand, setting up other potential cards in the graveyard for us to summon back. So even if we send a level 2 or lower monster to the graveyard with Signet Mining, we can summon it back with Cyberse Gadget, and then have our Link play right then and there. I also run 3 Signet Codec. Our search power comes down to this card, a continuous spell. If a Code Talker is special summoned from the extra deck to your field, except during the damage step, you can target 1 of those monsters and add 1 Cyberse monster with the same attribute from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for Cyberse monsters. It doesn't limit us at all with this deck, and it's our great setup for just getting more and more search power. We have the Earth attribute, the Wind attribute, Water, Dark, all the way down to Light, which is all what we're running in the deck for the good majority of the different Code Talker monsters for all the different searches, or the many different Cyberse monsters we run in the deck also. This continuous spell can easily be searched out with other cards like Microcoder, so being able to utilize it from the hand just to add this card and then go off with more of our Cyberse Code Talker plays, and having those Link 2 options as well in the deck in the form of Code Talker Inverted and Code Talker just make it all the easier. And then for some of the one-ofs for these spells, I run 1 Monster Reborn. Once again, just a special summon target for some of our monsters in the graveyard, giving us an additional token option with 1-time passcode, as in just another additional monster. I only run the 1, though, since it is a once per turn. Signet Fusion for these special summon plays involving our Fusion monster, which in this deck is Deplexer Chimera. It's just a lot easier to make than our Dragon to use with Cyberse Clock Dragon, just needing 2 Cyberse monsters to make this card, and having more of a recycle play as well. And then the 1 Signet Ritual for our Ritual Summon. And lastly, 1 Signet Optimization, making it so it's pretty much impossible for our opponent to activate anything when our Code Talkers attack. And another additional normal summon using this card on the field. I feel it's all the one-ofs you need. I took out the 1-for-1. There are easier ways to get Dotscaper into the graveyard to special summon than just to summon it with 1-for-1. I would say it's more of a negative setup there. I consider, because you can also summon Microcoder with 1-for-1, so if you really wanted to add it, you could always drop down the number of Signet Minings, but I really do like the 3 of copies in the deck to make full use of search power, and then just more added options with those cards. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. Our boss monster is the Link 5 Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid. With this card, needing 3 or more effect monsters to make it. And also, with this card, when it's summoned, it gains tokens equal to the different number of different extra deck and summon monsters. So, Ritual, Synchro, Xyz, Fusion, you can gain all these different tokens onto this card. I say tokens, but I mean counters. Obviously, my mistake there. And then having the additional negate options against your opponent with this card, and a power boost gain of up to the attack points for every counter on this card of 2,500. So this card can reach some pretty incredible numbers alone and then hit into your opponent for some big game plays also. I also run the 1 Code Talker inverted for the light attribute search and special summon options from our hand for our other Cyberse monsters when it's Link Summon. 1 Code Talker, this is the dark attribute one to go into an easy search play, both of them for the Link 2 options with our Code Talker main deck monsters. Also 1 Security Dragon for the bounce plays with transcode. 1 Cyberse Wicked for the Synchro setup, 1 Clock Spartoy for the Fusion setup, and 1 Cyberse Witch for the Ritual setup. Going into all these Link 2 monsters just gives us options for all the other different extra deck monsters to go into. I also run 1 Splash Mage for special summon from the graveyard, more of a easier setup card I would say than Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. For the bigger Code Talker monsters, 1 Transcode Talker for the Earth attribute, and this card can just summon more Link monsters from the graveyard back onto the field. X-Code Talker, the co-link with Transcode is really, really good, protecting it from card effects and also powering up both of the cards. Shooting Code Talker for the Water Attribute search with this card. And lastly, 1 Access Code Talker for the Link 4 boss monster. Being a Code Talker still gives us the search with cards like Signet Codec, but it's also here for destruction capabilities against our opponent. If you don't have Access Code Talker, you can take it out for Decode Talker or even one of the other attributes like Power Code Talker, and then you can put in some fire options like Flame Buffalo for the last final flame search, maybe dropping down the number of Cyberse gadget to 2 for 1 Flame Buffalo for the search option with your Power Code Talker. And then for the additional options, also 1 Deplexer Chimera for the Fusion plays, 1 Cyberse Integrator for the Synchro plays, and 1 Cyberse Reminder for the Xyz plays. They're very easier to summon out onto the field. If you want to run Cyberse Clock Dragon, Cyberse Quantum, and also Firewall Xyz, you can always replace these cards for them. I'd say it's going to be a little more difficult to summon them out, and if you were to run Cyberse Clock Dragon, I would drop down one of these Cyberse Gadget for a Clock Dragon, or the option for the Fusion play to summon it out. But I do recommend these if your main play in the deck is just to summon out your Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid. Much easier to utilize, being more generic Cyberse monsters, and then giving you bigger counters on that card also. And then as for some of the go-to plays to set up with in the deck, it all comes down, if you have one of the Coder monsters in your hand along with another Cyberse monster, then your search right there is ready to go. You can use, if you open up Lady Debug and Microcoder, or even better, just a card that can search out one of this card setup, then you can just go for the second monster with that spell search. You'll summon out Lady Debug, going for the search option. It can either be your backup secretary or even the option of another code monster. So you can add Code Generator to your hand, being one of the lower level monsters. You can then use Lady Debug and Microcoder for the Link to play, depending on what you searched. We'll also determine what you go into. Then you can go into your Code Talker monster. You will then activate the search power of Microcoder to add a Signet Codec to your hand, and then also giving you the option with this play to activate your Signet Codec and then use the Code Generator and the Code Talker in your hand to go into a Link 3 play, which this time around you can go into your Link 3 transcode. And then the search option for Signet Codec will give you Earth Attribute Search, and Code Generator will give you a card to send to the graveyard. You can send Dotscaper, giving you the special summon option with this card, and another Earth Attribute you can add to your hand will then be the option of your Widget Kid for the special summon option from your hand, and then special summoning Dotscaper onto the field with that card, transcode, being able to then summon out your Code Talker there. You can then go for the additional Link 3 option of your Shooting Code Talker, which will give you a water search when you summon it out onto the field. And with that water search, you can then add your Code Radiator to your hand. With that added to your hand, it gives you another Link Play search. But don't forget also, with the play, you can go for then the Link 2 option using your transcode and... Excuse me, I was talking too long there in sequence. But with that next play, you will then add Code Talker Inverted for the summon, using the effect of both of these searches. Since you went for a light attribute this time around, you will special summon also Widget Kid from your hand with Code Talker Inverted. If you have another additional monster in your hand, that's just another play to summon out using these cards. But don't forget the light search attribute play that you'll get with your Signet Codec, thanks to summoning out Code Talker Inverted, which you can then special summon onto the field, giving you the 2 additional monsters and one of the zones free now for you to go for one of the more provided monsters, whether it be Cyberse Yugioh or your Clock Spartoy or Cyber Switch, to then summon up into this zone depending on what play you want to go for. If you summon out Clock Spartoy, you'll get the Signet Fusion Search, which then you can use to then go for a fusion play depending on what resources you have to then summon out one of the needed cards, being your Duplexer Chimera. But if you go for instead the Synchro option, you can then summon out your Cyberse Integrator to the main monster zone after you get the special summon setup with the link to play of your Cyberse Yugioh and the additional monsters you may special summon out using these resources. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I always love updating the Cyberse deck. It's always fun just to see what changes I make with each and every update, and just all the fun you can have with this. I really feel it's easier to summon out the main go-to boss monster this time around, being Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, onto the field to use. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.